Okay, right now we are in a very interesting time. We have the Wall Street Bets community, the Reddit community, the GameStop short squeeze, and now all or a lot of the focus has been shifted to silver. We've had Zero Hedge covering the, quote, biggest silver short squeeze in history. People saying maybe the price will go to $1,000. There's a lot of conversation. And today we actually have who I affectionately call the silver guru, and that's Mr. David Morgan. Now, David Morgan is probably the foremost expert in the world on silver. He's actually discussed a lot of these things that always seemed a little far out, and because he's one of the greatest researchers in the silver market ever. So we had the opportunity to be David's first interview on this silver short squeeze topic. I want to encourage everyone to go sign up for his free newsletter, which is the Morgan Report. He's the first person that taught me about silver, about mining stocks. So please go to that right there down below. Make sure everybody comments down below just to send this out to as many people as possible. Comment down below Silver Squeeze in the comments, Silver Squeeze. Hit the like button on either side. Thanks to our channel sponsor, Vizsla Resources, one of my favorite silver stocks. Welcome, David Morgan.
Jake, it's great to be with you, and it's going to be very exciting this week. I'm certain of that. How long it lasts, how far it goes remains to be determined. I want to stay somewhat conservative about it, but something I predicted for a very long time that someday in some way there would be basically, I don't know if I used the word short squeeze, but that's what I meant. There would be a synergistic effect of people wanting silver for monetary reasons, and of course the industrial demand doesn't go away. And then it's kind of an awakening. Jim Poplava, Financial Sense, wrote an article, Silver Waiting for a Catalyst, I think is the exact title. And we didn't know what the catalyst is, but it looks like it's a Wall Street Bets Reddit group that said enough is enough. And the unique thing about silver is so many brand new beginning, I wouldn't even call them investors, just regular people. You don't have to open a brokerage account. You don't have to give them a bunch of numbers behind your name and, check your mother's, maiden name and, where you went to school. None of that. You pick up the phone and you make a purchase, or you get on the internet and you make a purchase. There's no who are you, how long you live there, and all that. It's all about send them the money, the fiat, and get real money. And, I did this video years ago, and there was a guy that did a rant this morning or yesterday. I just got it. I mean, I'm getting just flooded. You can imagine the kind of what my email looks like, not talking about my private numbers that very few people have. But regardless, he went on a rant, and he said, if everybody in the United States bought 3 or 4 ounces, it's over. That's 1 billion ounces, and that's, of course, a little more than the annual mine production. I made a video called Myths in the Silver Market years ago, and I talked about the misspeaking, in my opinion, in the dealer community. And the dealer community, most of them will tell you, well, I think everyone should own a little. And I went on to define what is a little silver. I defined it as 2 ounces. And I said, if everyone in America owned a little, 2 ounces, here's how much it would be. And that's 4% of the world's population. So if everyone means the world's population, I mean, all people owned a little, it's impossible, unless you could, you're looking at grams. I mean, that's really a little silver, but it's going to be very, very interesting, Jake. So let me throw it back to you. I'm sure there's, questions. And by the way, in the comments, folks, I don't have time. I've got a staff that works out of the Philippines that sometimes answers for me, but don't expect an answer. I'm planning to do a podcast every day this week, and Jake and I are pretty close, and he asked, hey, can you do one for me on Sunday? I said, you bet, I'll do it.
So tell me, we'll talk about some of the things when you and I were on the phone yesterday about how this kind of means to you, dark and light and good over evil, and the people are waking up. Let's get to that, and it's silver is that symbolism for you. But first, on this kind of topic that they're discussing, silver short squeeze, and the most popular Reddit post that I read said the price could go from $25 to $1,000 if the paper market broke. Well, why don't you give us an idea of some of the far out things you've contemplated on this subject, because you have discussed this idea of the paper market breaking, and give us an idea of how feasible it really is for for this type of movement to really bump the price up in a significant way.
Well, what I'm about to say, first of all, I could be wrong, and it's probably going to disappoint people. But as you said in the intro, I'm probably one of the oldest and longest silver investors around. So let's just go back to what we know. We know there was a huge move from the crash of 2008 when silver hit about $9, but nobody in the retail market could buy it for $9. You had to pay about 13. So it's about a 30% premium on silver in the retail market, meaning 1 ounce rounds, government minted 1 ounce coins, 10 ounce bars, 1 ounce wafers, 100 ounce bars. All of that stuff was scarce and the premiums were huge. I wrote an article about the arbitrage you could do. You could buy commercial bar silver at 9 and sell retail silver at 13 and make the spread. And a lot of people thought that the spread would go the other way, that commercial bar silver price, which is where the price is set, it's set on a big chunk of silver, it's not set in the retail coin market, would come up. It didn't. I was right. Not that I was wanting to be right. It's just what took place. So as that market got straightened out, you might say, or started to cool off and the margins came to normal, the price just kept going up and up and up. And we got up into the 35. And at 35, I was telling everybody on my interviews, public and private, unless you have to have it, don't put everything into silver at this price, mitigate your purchase, and think about it. And of course, it pushed up toward 50. Well, I'm being a little long-winded, but I want people to know, you asked the question, I think there's a really well-thought answer based on fact. So as it went up and up and up, the margin requirements went up and up and up. And that's what basically killed the market. If I remember correctly, it was 4 or 5 times they raised margin requirements. Now, I want to back off and add to this. I'm going to digress and come back to silver. So you get to the point where there's no leverage left in the futures market. In other words, you put up 1/5 of the money for a contract. Then you have to put up 2/5 of the money for a contract, and then 3/5. They keep raising the margin, and then 4/5. Finally, they say, no, you've got to put up the full amount of a contract to hold the paper contract. Now, that happened in palladium in the early 2000s, and honest to goodness, you had to put up twice the spot price of the actual metal to hold the paper. That's how insane it got. But you say, well, wait a minute, David, that's absolutely insane. Well, just think back, a year ago when oil went to -30? So you can see how distorted these paper markets really are. Now, you're not going to hear that from the establishment. You're not going to hear that from anybody that's, I'll just use the word establishment. So what do I think? I think this, and I've thought about it before this is my first public statement. Let me preface it with this, Jake. I am in touch with the facility which worked with the Hunt brothers directly. And I had a call with him within the last couple of days. And we discussed a little bit about what's going on, and a lot of it was personal because I've known him for years, and how's the family and where you're living and that kind of stuff. But obviously, he called me about silver and what did I think was going on. And we both agreed on one thing. Now, I'm not going to speak for him. I'll make my own words. But he basically used the word sharks. These people don't know, the kind of sharks that they're dealing with. And I'm going to go one step further. There's manipulations in all markets. I mean, to quote Chris Powell from GATA, there are no markets, just manipulations. Pretty much agree with that. I mean, there's some free markets here and there, but mostly they're not. But I'm saying, for the record, and I want to be cautious because, people are going to comment, and that's fine. But I would say from my experience, I'm talking about my experience of over 4 decades, they're the master manipulators. I mean, no one, in my opinion, has better manipulated a market like silver than then the manipulation team will call it. We'll call it from the gold-only bugs back in, the late 1800s that, did the gold only and took out silver from the monetary system with what's called the crime of 1873, all the way to the Silver Users Association. What other commodity has a users association who make a pact together? It's more than a cartel, in my opinion, than the oil cartel. It says, look, we got to make sure that silver is only an industrial metal. It's never thought of as money. People never want to invest in it. And we're going to be able to keep the price low so our margins are high. Let's form a users association. And who's in the users association? All the big users of silver. So, it's collusion, really, in my opinion. So this is what we're up against, Jake. But still, it's a pretty simple thing to dial in. You basically pay for it and take it. The problem is, how much is there to take? And the answer is very, very, very little. So price is the arbitrator of who gets the Rembrandt at the Sotheby's auction. The price just gets bid up and bid up and bid up and bid up until finally someone says, all right, you can have it. I don't want to pay any higher than that for it. So that's where we're going to be in the silver market. How long is it going to last? I don't know. Is it going to stabilize at a high price? I don't know. Is the establishment going to raise margin requirements? Yes. Are they going to take stop buy orders? Maybe. But there's ways around that, but not a lot. We could talk about some of them. And so I said a mouthful. I think it's important to get it out in the front of the interview so people know. I'm very, very excited, but I'm also very cautious because I know how these people operate, and they are, repeating, they're the master manipulators. I mean, they've been on the silver market for a long time, and they, took out the Hunts. They took out the run in 2011, and now I'm sure they're sweating a little bit, but they probably have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F going forward. But that doesn't mean that the people's money can't return to the people and we take them out. It could happen.
So it's been interesting to watch, I'm very active on Twitter. So I'm reading what everything's posting, and I'm seeing people, purely Bitcoin maximalist bulls saying, this is the craziest thing that ever happened. I'm buying silver right now. And I saw like a tweet from someone that said their sister-in-law sent it to them. And it was their teenage son who put his $800 savings into Robinhood GameStop, turned it into 4K, turned that 4K into a wire transfer to buy physical silver. And his mom was like, what are you doing? Like, you're on the phone with some guy wire transferring all your money for silver. And he said, Mom, don't worry about it. I've researched all this stuff and it's easy money. That's what the tweet said. And so, it's interesting. There really is this is a strong push. It's trending right now too on Twitter in the United States. It was on Canada, but now it's in the US. So where do you think it could go, or do you not even like to say because the market's so rigged that it's, it may never totally break free? But is that Reddit, the main Reddit post that says it could go to 1,000, is that ridiculous? I mean, could that actually occur, or is it more just say, hopefully it gets to 50 again?
Well, I think it's going to go past 50 this time. I said 100 back in 2003, I believe, and I still think we're going to see triple-digit silver. Cliff High's pretty famous for seeing in his data $600 silver. 600 isn't that far from 1,000. Markets usually overshoot, and when the analogy of a suppressed market with the beach ball being pushed under the underwater, and when it's finally released, there's a huge amount of force that is driving that up. So a lot of those analogies are true for silver. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. It's really difficult to know ahead of time. I don't. I've always said the market knows more than me. What I don't know is what is the longevity of the market. Mm-hmm. You could call this a pump and dump. I mean, if it goes for 2 weeks, people take paper profits or get discouraged. It could be one of those things where you're in it. And, it's really tough on me because I write a financial newsletter, right? And I want to do right by the people. So what do you do? And the answer is, I don't know yet. The market, again, knows a lot, and I'm pretty good at watching the market and listening to what it's saying. And so, for example, Jake, let's just say we see silver gap up on the open on Monday. Say it gaps up to, let's say, what did it close at? 27 something. Say it gaps up to $31. So there's like a $3 gap. That's huge. I mean, think about it. That's a 10% gap in the market. And that's just to try to quell the market. It's like the real physical silver market's like, oh man, we're getting these kind of orders. We are going to move the price up. And the bids are coming in above the market, which happens in a tight market. It's like, you want 27? I'll pay 28. No, you pay 28. Again, like an open cry auction at Sotheby's. You just cry out, if the card, oh no, I'll pay more than that. Well, I'll pay more than that. No, I'll pay more than that. So you'll get this gap. Pretty certain you'll see it. Will it be 31? Will it be 29.70? Will it be 35? I don't know. But I think you can pretty much count on that. I've been in touch with a couple of the, what I'll call big boys on the wholesale side, and I'm pretty certain I'm right. What I'm concerned about is how many people are going to really wait for physical delivery. Because right now, before this started, I was talking to one of my retail dealer buddies I've known for years. I really so glad I got to meet him face to face. He's been a silver guy for a long time. And he said, do you know that there's a real, tightness in the silver market right now? And this was a couple of weeks ago, Jake. I said, actually, no. I mean, I usually call every month to 3 or 4 of the biggest dealers. I won't name them all, but, it's people that by name. And ask them, what's it like in the retail market? And they tell me, it's tight, it's soft, good month, about average, that kind of thing. But he said it's tight everywhere. It's really hard to get even rounds right now. Well, that's before this even happened. So my point is, if you're going to play this market correctly, in my very, very experienced view, you've got to get at least some in the physical market. Not that these tiny silver stocks won't go ballistic, not that the major silver stocks won't go ballistic, not that the ETF won't go ballistic, the SLV, the PSLV, and all that. But that's pretty much playing in their game. The SLV, read the prospectus on what they count as physical. I mean, there's 35 million ounces or so that came in on Friday. It's wonderful. I'm happy. I mean, I think it's great. But you don't move 35 million ounces of physical in one day. It's impossible. You can put it on
just
paper.
Think about the logistics. How would you even do that? It's
Yeah. So like in a PSLV, basically that's closed in. I love Eric Sprott. In fact, I did mention to him that I thought it would be time to take that shelf filing down off the bookcase and open it up and buy more physical silver.
Did you just tell him that in the last couple of days?
Yeah.
Cool.
Very recently. So
look, if there was ever a time for someone like Sprott to move in, I mean, getting this much momentum without him, that's the perfect time, right, for him to kind of catch the winds.
Well, you talk about a leader in the silver market. I might be one of the thought leaders, but if you look at pound in the sand, it's Eric. I mean, he's the guy that when he opened it up, in fact, I was sitting next to him with his group before he launched it, and had a few questions for me, and I addressed the group and told him straight out what I thought, and he actually made a minor change to it based on input. And when they opened it up, I forget the exact number, but I think it was 22 million ounces. And when they got that, they had fresh bars coming in to fill the demand, and they were past due, not by like months and months, but a few weeks past, the due date, meaning, it's a contract, by the end of, we'll just make it up, for example, the end of March 2021, you'll have complete delivery. Well, that date came and they didn't have complete delivery, but very close to it. I mean, so I thought, wow, this shows how what I call the real silver market, not that the coin market isn't real. It's just that the price is set on commercial bars. So if they're having trouble delivering commercial bars, it's, oh man, that is the silver market. This is really tight. Well, the next time he did a purchase. If memory serves, people can criticize me in the comments all they want. I'm doing the best I can. I think it was 24 million ounces. Anyway, it came right in. And this is a few years later. I think it was 2 years later. Again, you can check me on that. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. Were they ready for it? Is it whatever? I mean, the silver production's gone up significantly for the last 2 decades. It's gone from 550 million ounces to 850 million ounces.
Well, how much would people need to buy for a squeeze to really happen?
I think all they need to buy, and sorry I've interrupted, but I've been thinking about this all weekend, about 150 million ounces is all.
100, that's it. Because that's what I want to talk about too, because in my opinion, they're misguided in buying SLV. And so I wanted, to have the expert of experts on, and that's you. So you're saying about 150 million ounces. This is not talking SLV. This is people actually go online and they buy 5 ounces.
So let's be conservative. Let's double that.
Okay.
Let's say, all right, well, that might just be enough to, get the dealers really scared. Last year, there was over 300 million ounces taken into the silver ETFs. Unheard of. Never seen that much. I mean, you got to remember, I know you know, but I don't think many of your listeners know, that last year at the World Economic Forum, better known in those days as Davos, Scott Maynard was talking to Bloomberg, and he said he thought the go-to investment for 2020, clear vision, see clearly what's coming. I've been seeing it for a while. And silver is the place to be. So in that year, I think it's about, and the real numbers aren't out yet, but the Silver Institute put out their kind of preliminary numbers. So it's over like 300 million. And this is like unprecedented. Never seen that much silver go into the ETFs in 1 year before. So if we did that again on our own, where it wasn't just, people using the SLV as the proxy for their investment, but did it by calling up, different coin dealers or different entities, that would do it. So I'm saying 150 million ounces is probably enough to be like the minimum. Double it to 300 million ounces, which sounds like a lot, but that's like 1 ounce for every person in America, So we're talking a $30 bill for everybody in America. We've got 340 million people in America, and I'm just saying 300 million ounces will do it, or maybe half that. So it's not a big number when you put it in those terms, especially when you know it's a global market, especially when you know that half that market is eaten up by the commercial interests on the industrial side. So, that isn't going to go away. I mean, can you imagine if your Apple computer or Samsung or Mitsubishi or one of these companies, and you actually wake up, Sunday morning and your, teenage son tells you about what's going on with Reddit, and all of a sudden, you have never in your life warehoused an ounce of silver. It's always been just-in-time inventory. And then your friend from Apple calls you up and says, hey, do you know what's going on? You say, well, sort of. My son just told me about it. So you know what? We just called our dealer, and the market's going to open up at $33 an ounce tomorrow. And we're going to buy an allotment for the next quarter to just be certain we can stay in business. Now, I'm making all this up. And you got to remember, I'm pretty biased about honest money and the people having power. And money is power. And the money power has always been with the elites since the crime of 1873, gold only. Then it went from gold only to full fiat. And from August 15th, 1971, when Mr. Nixon temporarily closed the gold window, we've seen an acceleration in the depreciation of the currency. And anybody that knows anything about monetary history knows it becomes worthless. So you got worthless on one side and you got silver on the other side. So the thing is, if you are willing to put up your fiat and wait, because you're going to have to wait 3 weeks right now before this thing started, that was my friend telling me it was tight, to 4 weeks to 5 weeks to 6 weeks. But as long as you deal with somebody you can trust, you can wait. Because what will happen is you will see somebody that can be trusted take orders. Let's just make up a number. We'll put all the little guys together. So they've got 100 million ounces. Well, there's not 100 million ounces in silver rounds available right now, but there is 100 million ounces available in commercial bars. So what will happen is the mints, the private mints, will take those 1,000-ounce bars, melt them down, extrude them, punch them out, and they'll make silver rounds out of them. But the problem is you're going to have to wait 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. I'm guessing probably 8 weeks, but it will happen. So if you've got the ability to stand fast with conviction rather than just, play the paper side, and I'm free market. First of all, if you don't want anything to do with silver, so be it. I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying people that know what's going on, that want to make a statement and say the money power belongs to the people. The money power doesn't belong with these freaking manipulators that have been taking advantage. The most beautiful thing I think about the GameStop situation is that it woke people up to the real truth. And the real truth is these people, the average investor has been had by the financiers for a very long time. And I think a lot of people didn't really realize it. So I'm so glad, in a way, that the truth came out, and that it came out in a market not like the silver and gold market. It came out in a market where people that said, oh, those conspiracy guys, oh, I've heard that for years, oh, they're full of it, blah, 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 get it right in their face and see it for real. Like, oh, wait a minute. These guys weren't wrong. They're right. And the way they take it, see, as the stock certificate or GameStop, the only option you really got is to sell for fiat. Whereas the thing that's so beautiful about silver is it's not a stock certificate. You get to take the real metal and you can spend it directly. I mean, I know a guy in Las Vegas built his whole house with different contractors with silver. I know people that rent their rooms, Airbnb that takes silver. I mean, if this thing really goes, Jake, and I don't know if it will, there'll be a lot of deals done that's done with money instead of with currency. It's like, oh no, you can rent my Airbnb. It's 500, fiat, but it's at 1 ounce of silver. Silver's now at 500 equivalent or something. You know what I'm saying? See a lot more of that because people will be waking up. I mean, it's exciting, but I don't want to get overamped. I don't want to get too far down the road. The market knows I don't, but I've never, ever, ever seen anything even close to this. And I saw a lot in 2011. I mean, there was a lot of people. I mean, my phone was, blowing up. My email was blowing up. And, I was warning people 35 is about it. This time, I don't know when to start warning them. I have to watch the market. But, I mean, if we go from 30 to 50 in 1 week, which I'm not saying we will. I'm not. But if we have that kind of momentum, that's going to speak volumes about what the market is really saying.
It seems like the momentum's there. And the other thing that I find interesting is there is a lot of people that I think don't care about silver at all that care about being a part of taking these people down. And I've been reading their big letters to CNBC and community Redditors posting about how their dad lost everything in the last crisis. And so I think that there's also a percentage of them that really don't care about silver itself. They see the opportunity because it's such a short squeeze market, and they also want to stick it to the man. And I think that that's interesting because whereas in 2011, you had more of the gold bugs and silver bugs, this time it looks like it's becoming more mainstream. And so that 150, 200 million, 300 million ounces, maybe it is achievable. If everyone listening to this video goes out and just buys 10 ounces of silver, if you've got money to spend, you want to buy a monster box, there's nothing like having it in your hand. So that's step number one for the listeners to be out there doing. Now, the next thing I want to ask you is...
Well, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Because that's the most important thing in this interview so far is what you said. And I totally agree. It's a wake-up call. It's not a silver religion. It's not really about silver. It's about I get to make a statement against the money elite. Silver is a way to do it. It's not a stock cert. I don't have to settle for fiat. I can take real money and spend it when I see fit. And that's the most important point. So you made it and carry on.
Yeah, no, I want, especially, with the king of silver and one of the two or three greatest experts on silver who's maybe ever lived, we're going to have people interested. And I want to make sure people grasp is get your silver, not just for the short squeeze, but you don't want to be left holding SLV. So that's number one. But then number two is I tweeted right before our interview. I said, hey, Elon Musk, and I tagged him. I said, so at what price point of silver will Tesla and Solar City start panic buying for batteries and solar panels? And that's what I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on, because that's another interesting component that could send it a lot higher, or maybe it could even sustain a price rise. Because you would think that, as you said a minute ago when you were illustrating, that fictitious story about, the Apple CEO's son or someone or whatever, some guy, his 14-year-old kid getting his silver in the mail, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And so that could cause a panic buy from tech and industrial companies. How much credence do you give to something like that?
Well, I've thought about it, and I mentioned it in the last few months at least. So let's go for what we know. Me being an ex-engineer, I'll say I love to think logically, and I love to use facts. So if you go to the fact of the palladium market, palladium really isn't used for money. It's used for catalytic converters in gasoline engines. And it's gone from, the $700 level, when the last time I recommended it, up to like $2,200. And it sustained it, which is important. And why has it sustained it and gone sideways around 2,200 USD for months and months? And the answer is because it's in that much demand. And its only demand is industrial. Now, silver is so plentiful, and it's really not, but, relative to the demand side, industrial-wise, it's plentiful enough where only half of the market is industrial. So if you do a thought experiment and say, 100% of the silver market's industrial, you could see where it'd get up to a certain price and maintain it. It'd almost have to. That's pretty logical. But since only 50% of the market is industrial, then if there's margin left over and people don't want to invest in it, then silver jewelry becomes unpopular and no one ever buys any silverware again. Then you're going to see, an amount of silver that's going to keep the market suppressed, if you want to call it that, or there'll be enough silver for the market price to be determined by the absolute amount of silver. So we're at a point now where people, as you said, and I really think you made the best point. People say, I don't really care about silver, but I really care about voting. And my vote is, I am sick of what you guys have done to me for the last 30 years. You took my RA and you trashed it in 2008. I don't like what happened to getting kicked out of my house. Me and my wife were both working, and in the 2008 crisis, we got kicked out. So there's a lot of pent up, justified anger, I'll call it. People that are just tired of being used and abused and all this stuff, and it's a way for them to say, what, I'm voting with money, what you guys call money. I'm voting with currency, and I'm getting back to it. So back to the question. Yeah, if there's a demand on the monetary side, which obviously there is and has been, it's been very strong last year. They're going to be epic this year, or could be epic this year. Then what happens, the industrial side, they'll panic. Somebody at some point will panic. The thing that's so funny about it for me, not for them, is the panic will go quickly through the sector. Go back to the Silver Users Association. You don't think those guys don't talk to each other all the time? Of course they do. So, as I said, the Mitsubishi guy is going to call the Apple guy, that's going to call the Samsung guy, that's going to call, you name it, Dow Chemical, and they're all going to say, uh-oh, we better buy it. So they'll have to start bidding it up when they face, going out of business. I should say going out of business. They could, I'll be more conservative, they could face supply disruption, which means that they're going to have a tough time maintaining the inventory flow out the door to make a profit. So that could happen.
What price do you think that would Is there a price that you think that would begin to happen at? Or?
No, there's no price because it's priced inelastic. I mean, if you look at how much silver is in a refrigerator that costs several $1,000s, it's probably $10 worth of silver.
So they care more about the quantity than the price.
They have to have it. It's the problem. It's essential. There's no substitute. You can't put it in aluminum or copper or, you might be able to put in platinum, but that's not going to save you any money. You've got to use silver. It's the cheapest, best one. I mean, nothing conducts electricity like silver does. At least that's cheap. And you might look at graphene, but that's more costly. So, no, it's essential. It's something that you can't substitute. And it's so small of the overall price of an iPhone or an iPad or a touch screen or a flat screen TV or even a solar panel. I mean, any of that stuff uses a very small amount of silver relative to the overall cost of the item. So if silver goes up tenfold, these people still have to use it. And it's really, for their bottom line, isn't that big a deal. It really isn't. If you got let's say the manufacturing cost of an iPhone is $100. I don't know what it is, but for the illustration purposes, and there's $1 worth of silver in it. Okay, silver goes up tenfold. So now there's $10 worth of silver in a $100 item. And of course, these companies, I've seen it before. I saw it when there was a bit of a squeeze going on in the 70s, the Hunt thing. And, a lot of these film companies took advantage of that and said, oh, silver, and they pushed their price much higher than what it was really costing them. But everyone's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? They're going to set the price. You're either going to pay it or you won't.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're saying they care less about the price and more about the availability, which exactly. In my viewpoint, that's good for us as investors, because then they could bid the price higher if all they care about is the availability of it. And, there was only 760 million mined ounces in 2020 or so. So, you said maybe a couple 100 million puts the squeeze on. So that's exciting. So let me ask you, so for everyone listening, go out there, buy some silver. You can tweet me a picture of your silver. I'll retweet it. But number two, you were when you and I were on the phone yesterday, you were pretty lively. You were feeling pretty good. It made you pretty excited. So why don't you tell me a bit about what has you, you've touched on it, but tell me a little bit more about what has you excited about this from a philosophical level. You're talking about this is good over evil and the awakening. And I thought it was pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't recall exactly word for word, but the idea is that it's an opportunity for people to get the light. Nothing reflects light better than silver. So sort of the ability of the light to be shed on the evil that we've seen throughout the system. And there's nothing that's more of a control factor than money. I mean, if you look at it from my perspective, you can agree or disagree. There's this, one world religion. It's called money. And really, if you think about it, money is the god of almost everybody. You won't get people to admit it, but if you're really true to your innermost self, people in India, people in Pakistan, people in Australia, the North Americas, South Americas, their god is money for the most part. And it's not their fault or anything like that. It's the fact that, we're the only species on the planet that has to have some of it or we can't live without it. And there's exceptions. You could be, a Mennonite or Amish or, somewhere in the outback in Australia, but that's really not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the other 99% of the population on the planet has to have money. It's their God. So you have a one world religion. And then you've got the people that control that, which are the elite banking system and their corporate brethren under them. And so it's the ability, I think, for people to wake up. I think this is the biggest wake up that I've ever experienced in the silver market. I don't think, I know it is. It came about, I never predicted how it would come about because I'm just not smart enough to know. But I like the fact that the GameStop thing was sort of what started it. At least that's how I see it now. Might, change my opinion after the fact. I don't know. But the idea is that, look, this has been happening not just in the metals. It's happening everywhere for a long time. So I think it is philosophical. I think it is good against evil. You've got, what a lot of people consider God's money, gold and silver. First money in the Bible is silver. You look at what Jesus was given up for, 30 pieces of silver. I mean, I don't want to get too philosophical, but something to think about. Silver's been in our lives for a very long time. I mean, the foundation of the country is on the silver standard, not on the gold standard. A dollar is 371.2 fine grains of 999 fine silver. It's a weight. I mean, if anybody knew anything about anything, you could actually go in the grocery store and say, I want $1 worth of carrots, and they'd put them on a scale and weigh them. But no one knows that. We're all brainwashed to think $1 is this piece of paper with somebody's picture on it, when actually it's defined as a weight of silver. That's what $1 truly is legally. So I could go on and on, Jake. I think you made the most important points, not me. I think my main point I'll end with is patience. I think, jump in on Monday, Tuesday, jump in all week. I mean, where do you set a limit? I don't know. As much as I know right now, subject to change. I don't want to mislead anybody. This is not financial advice. It's just my opinion. I think you're safe to buy probably up to 50. I think after that, you want to think about it. Can you buy after 50? Absolutely. But you don't want to bet the farm after 50. And you could double that. You go to 100. I mean, I don't know. The thing I don't want to see is anyone get hurt. I've always said pretty much, I'm in print saying 10%. I changed that to 20% many years ago because of the crisis in the currency system and the manipulation coming to the end.
20% of what?
Pardon me?
20% of what? What do you mean?
Of your net worth.
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Thank you. No, it's important to be clearly, communication's the key. Thank you. So if you're worth, $100,000, then $20,000 is probably as much as you should devote to this metals market.
Are you talking about physical metal, or are you talking about a whole allocation between miners and such?
I'm actually talking whole allocation. If you're a member, you probably don't remember how to use the Morgan report, but it's a guideline. It's not in stone. But if you're going to put in that 20,000, probably half should go into physical metal. The other half goes into these stocks. You put 70% in the top tier ones I recommend, and 20% into the mid tiers, and take that 10% and play with it in the speculations that we offer, and that from reading it. So that's how I do it. Then there's people that are silver only and no paper at all. And there's people that just do the ETFs. I mean, I know a lot of the hedge fund guys that are metals heads, I'll call them, and they only use the SLV. They can't do millions and millions of dollars in the physical market. Now you can, but it's so much easier to sit in their office and click the mouse and buy SLV.
Yeah, that's funny. All right. Obviously, there's a lot of other things I'd like to talk about, but I think for where we're at right now in the topic, I wanted to get a video out, with the Silver Guru, just to discuss the realistic possibility of this, your idea of how much metals, and tangible, actionable steps. I'd love to discuss more. Let's do it once you're going to be doing a lot of interviews, but let's loop back, in the next week or so. And let's just, let's wrap, me, I love to do long form, talk about the future, all these types of things. So there's a lot of, as a researcher and philosopher such as you are, there's a lot of other things I'd love to discuss, but let's keep this subject on this one. Let's wrap up like this. For everyone listening, comment down below, Silver Squeeze, share this video. Actually copy the link right now and go onto Twitter and go onto Facebook and copy it in your newsletter or your blog, or send it to your brother on text message or whatever. Just send it to everybody and summarize it. Say, hey, let's go out right now. I found this bullion dealer down the street. Let's go buy, 40 ounces. Let's go buy 7 ounces. Don't ever think that I don't have very much money, so I can't. 1 ounce is better than 0. That means you officially are on the side of having real money that isn't being destroyed by the government and the devaluation of currency. So let's start there. Screenshot it. Send it to me over on Twitter, or send it to my buddy Gold Ventures on Twitter. We'll retweet it for you. Everyone, the Morgan Report's right there down below. I have to credit David with really being the first mentor I ever had in silver and gold and investing. And so much of what I learned about silver and gold and mining stocks. Last year, I had a great year in mining stocks, and I've learned, many things from other people along the journey, but it all started with David. So I highly recommend David's newsletter, and it's right there down below. There's a free version of it. Hit the like button on either side. David, give us if there's anything I've missed or any final call to actions or anything else you want to say.
I just want to reiterate what I said. First of all, you read my mind. I was going to say, in view of the new administration, let's circle back. You already said it. Maybe a week from now, we can visit each other and see what the week was like. I wanted to show this privately minted round here. That's an Indian, and that's my old website domain, silver-investor.com. And that is $450. It's really more now. I'll call it $5, because in the 2013 silver conundrum, when silver was at 13 retail and the commercial bars were $9, I bought commercial bars, and I sent them to my mint buddy who made these for me. And so the true cost of this was like $10 silver rather than $13 silver for a product. But I had to be patient. I had to ship the bars there and wait until he got them into the feed. But I got them. I trust him. I know him. I can help you with that if you're so interested. But patience is going to be kind of the key here, because if you call up a mainstream dealer that's been in business for 20 or 30 years or 5 or whatever, and they tell you you're going to have to wait 5 weeks, don't be shocked. 6 weeks, don't be shocked. 8, 7, 8 weeks could happen, especially if the run to silver that we think is going to happen.
And don't wimp out if that occurs.
Don't wimp out. Yeah. But don't bet the farm either. I mean, if you gave your life savings, to the silver market, and you got to wait 8 weeks, believe me, that 8 weeks is going to feel like 8 months, and you're going to age 5 years. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but believe me, I know first-time buyers, they just have a panic. Well, you got my money. Well, now you got your fiat or currency, but we use it. I mean, I'll be honest, of course. So they're worried. And then finally that, UPS or registered mail or FedEx or however it's delivered comes, they sign for it, they get it. And that's the thing that's interesting about the dealer market. I didn't plan to go on a tangent too long, but most people, once they establish a relationship with a dealer and they get their metal, never leave that dealer, because they know that they can trust them. And so rather than worry about a penny or 2 or 5 cents here or there for the price of silver, they'll stick with that dealer because they know they can trust them. And you can most. I don't want to worry anybody. That's why I'm making the statement. I don't want people to worry that, wait a minute, if I can't get it tomorrow, it mustn't be legit. No,
and I've had metals delivered to me in the middle of the country in Maui. That I've been impressed. Any major reputable company, and it's happened to me before, where it took a while to deliver. Just know you're going to get it. Be patient, and go out there and make sure you get your physical allocation, right?
Yep. Well, thanks. I'm going to cut off. My dog sounds like she needs to go outside. I really appreciate you and all you've done, and also helping me get into a younger audience, because the message is the same. The money masters are only going to be our masters until we've had enough. I think we've had enough, and we can speak loudly. Thank you, Jake.
Amen. Share this video. Share it right now. Hit the like button. Comment down below. Silver Squeeze. We'll see you next time.